I hadn't planned to speak. I just wanted to sit quietly, toast my son, and leave unnoticed. But when his mother-in-law leaned over with a champagne smile and asked, "Why is this pathetic woman even here?" the whole table laughed, including my son, including the boy I raised alone, fed through foreclosure, and put through college. He stopped laughing when the server came around asking who would be signing the venue check, and I slid the deed across the table. Before we begin, may I ask, where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this space. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The lights shimmered across the polished hardwood floors of the Ashcroft estate, throwing reflections off champagne flutes and expensive veneers. Laughter swirled through the air like perfume. Tight, curated, hollow. Everyone looked perfect. Everyone acted like they belonged. Lorraine stood just inside the archway of the grand hall, a glass of dry brut in her hand and a knot in her stomach. She had worn black, a simple silk dress that hugged her like a secret, and tucked her hair into a neat chignon, held up with a single silver pin. She hadn't been invited, not really. But the invitation came anyway, forwarded from the legal firm that had handled the transfer of the property, her property, sold under pressure, under duress, under the illusion of dignity. Tonight, that house belonged to Greg and Chelsea. 10 years ago, Lorraine had signed the deed over with one condition: that the garden in the back never be touched. That wasn't sentiment, it was strategy. That garden buried too many things people had forgotten. She hadn't. A fresh round of laughter broke out near the fireplace. Greg was holding court again, his fingers loosely wrapped around a glass of Macallan, his second or maybe third. Chelsea sparkled beside him, all teeth and curves, and the false sweetness that had fooled entire boardrooms. Her voice carried across the room like glass breaking under silk. So Greg surprises me with a Tesla, right in the driveway. I told him, "Baby, if you're going to spend 6 figures, at least let me pick the color." A ripple of polite laughter followed. Greg beamed, the proud fool. Then, a voice, slurred and sharp, not meant to carry. "Why is that pathetic woman even here?" It was Margot, Chelsea's mother, standing just 6 feet away, whispering to a woman in blue chiffon, but pitching it just loud enough. Lorraine didn't move. The air stilled around her, the champagne going flat on her tongue. And then Greg, who used to swear he'd never let anyone speak poorly of her, Greg, who used to call her the spine behind every one of his victories, laughed. A low chuckle, casual, indulgent. He didn't correct Margot, didn't flinch, didn't glance Lorraine's way. He laughed, like she wasn't there. Anna, standing next to Lorraine, turned sharply. Her eyes flashed like storm clouds in the moonlight filtering through the skylight. "Did you hear what she just said?" Anna hissed, loud enough now for heads to start turning. Lorraine slowly sipped her champagne and set the glass on a passing tray. She folded her hands in front of her, a portrait of grace. "I heard it all," she said, her voice even, almost serene. "And I remember everything." Her gaze didn't leave Greg. Not when Chelsea leaned into him. Not when he looked away. Not when the music swelled and the guests turned their attention to the first dance. Anna's jaw clenched. "You shouldn't have come here." "Oh, I absolutely should have." Lorraine's voice had cooled, refined to the same edge as the pin holding her hair. "They think I came to remember, but I came to remind." Just then, the lights flickered. Only once, but enough. Greg flinched. Chelsea glanced toward the back hallway. Lorraine didn't blink. She had spent 6 years planning this moment. Every inch of this house had been redrawn in her memory. The sound the stair made near the library, the draft behind the kitchen cabinet, the way the basement key still stuck if you didn't jiggle it twice, and the garden, especially the garden. Out beyond the French doors, behind the manicured hedges, and beneath a canopy of moonlit cypress, the untouched garden remained. Wild, overgrown, untouched only in appearance. Lorraine had buried more than roses in that soil. She had buried the last lie Greg ever told her. Buried it deep, under a stone they never thought to move. That stone had been moved yesterday, by her. Anna followed her gaze. "What's in the garden, Lorraine?" Lorraine smiled, small, cold, knowing. "Not what. Who?" Inside, The guests twirled under fairy lights and false laughter. Outside, the wind picked up. Somewhere deep in the garden, a motion sensor blinked red. Lorraine turned to Anna, her voice like a match head striking the edge of something explosive. Tonight, everything comes up from the dirt. Lorraine sat in the driver's seat of her Lexus, engine off, heater humming low. The estate loomed behind her in the rearview mirror, lit up like a stage set. But out here, parked just down the long gravel drive beneath a skeletal elm, it felt distant, like something from a life she'd watched instead of lived. On her lap lay a leather folio. She unzipped it slowly, deliberately, and pulled out the one thing more powerful than memory: paper. The deed was printed on thick parchment, official, time-stamped, notarized in ink so dark it still seemed wet. She unfolded it with care, the same way a coroner might unwrap a body they already knew the identity of. Clause 4B stared back at her like it had been waiting all these years. The grantee shall retain life use only, contingent upon behavior that maintains moral dignity and respect toward the grantor. Any violation, verbal or otherwise, shall be considered a breach of covenant. Said breach allows immediate and full revocation of residency and use. Her breath fogged the windshield. Outside, a branch scratched against the glass with the dry rhythm of fingernails. The whole transfer had been a performance. Greg had been so drunk on his win back then, so high on manipulation and new money, that he hadn't even read it. Just skimmed and scribbled his name like it was a cocktail napkin at a golf club. He never asked why she insisted on the notary. She remembered that moment perfectly, the way Charlene, her best friend and real estate lawyer, had watched Greg sign with a silent wince. "You had it notarized," Charlene had said after Greg left. "That clause, it's fire on a fuse." Lorraine had smoothed the pages down and replied without looking up, "Because I knew this day would come." She hadn't cried after handing over the house, not once, but she had counted every laugh, every insult, every time Chelsea posted a photo from her kitchen island with a wine glass, like a weapon. Greg thought the house was his. He didn't know he'd been living inside a fuse box. Now it was time to light the match. She picked up her phone and scrolled past the missed calls, the party photos already being posted with filters, the captions laced with barbed sweetness. Then she tapped a number she hadn't called in 2 years. It rang twice. Then, Victor Ames. His voice hadn't changed, still clipped, still dangerous in its restraint. "Victor," Lorraine said, "it's time." A pause. No questions, no small talk, just breath. "I assume the clause is intact?" he asked. "Every word. And you have documentation of the incident? Audio, video, witnesses, including his laughter." She paused. "He mocked me in my own former home, while standing on a deed he never deserved." Victor's voice was silk wrapped around a switchblade. "Then I'll draft the demand. Tomorrow? 9 a.m. I want it in his hands before he's even done digesting his wife's catered French toast." A faint chuckle on the other end. "Lorraine, remind me never to cross you." She hung up without answering. Inside the folio, beneath the deed, were old photos of the house, sun-drenched kitchen tiles, a window seat she used to read on, the garden before it grew wild. She stared at them, not with nostalgia, but calculation. Every inch of that house had once belonged to her. Every square foot infused with her energy, her earnings, her sacrifices. Greg had occupied it. But Lorraine? Lorraine had built it. And now she would unbuild him. A knock on her window startled her. She turned, half expecting security, maybe even Greg, but it was Charlene, holding 2 coffees and a folder tucked under her arm. She climbed into the passenger seat without waiting. "Heard you'd be here," she said, handing over the coffee. "You really went to the party?" I needed to hear it from his own mouth. Charlene opened the folder, revealing a photocopy of the deed with her handwritten notes along the margins. Case law, precedents, municipal addendums. "You're going to win this," Charlene said. "He won't even see it coming." Lorraine stared out at the estate through the windshield. A silhouette moved across the master bedroom window, Chelsea, maybe, or Greg, or both, locked in the illusion that they were untouchable. She took a slow sip of coffee. "He won't just lose the house," Charlene tilted her head. "What else is he going to lose?" Lorraine finally looked at her, eyes like glass beneath ice. His version of the story. Morning came gray and heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. The house that wasn't hers, but still was, stood in the distance through the drizzle, wrapped in fog and arrogance. Lorraine's printer hummed softly, spitting out a single page at a time. Ink streaks formed words she'd waited years to see in black and white. Evidence. Margot's post filled the screen. A photograph of Chelsea and Greg, mid-toast, champagne glittering, the caption brittle and smug. Some people don't know when they're not wanted. Sad, really, but every queen has to tolerate a few ghosts at her coronation. The comments were worse. Little digital claps, emojis, laughing faces. But one detail mattered most. Margot had tagged the location. The same estate, the same night, public, permanent. Lorraine printed 3 copies, one for the record, one for Victor, one for the folder that never left her desk. She slid the pages into a manila envelope marked in neat block letters, evidence, conduct of moral disrespect. When her phone vibrated, she didn't startle. She'd been expecting it. "Morning," Victor said, voice crisp over the line. "I reviewed everything. Clause 4B is fully triggerable. You're within your rights to revoke residence effective immediately." Lorraine exhaled once, slowly. "So it's real, finally." "Very real," he replied. "I've already drafted the revocation of use agreement. Your signature activates notice. After that, it's just logistics." She could hear the faint scratch of his pen over the phone. Victor was old school that way. Every deal handwritten before it hit the system. "Send it," she said. 10 minutes later, her printer clicked again. One sheet this time, a legal document with teeth. She read it carefully, savoring each line. Every sentence confirmed what Greg never believed, that the house, the land, the bricks, the title, all of it had never really left her hands. Clause 4B, breach confirmed. Revocation authorized. Lorraine uncapped her pen. The tip hovered for a heartbeat above the signature line. She smiled. Not wide, not cruel. Just the faint curve of inevitability. The pen met paper. Ink met destiny. It was done. She set the signed document flat on the counter, her reflection caught faintly in the polished granite. Behind her, the kettle clicked off. Steam rose, winding up like smoke from something smoldering just beneath the surface. Her phone buzzed again. "Victor." "Confirmed," he said. "Signature received. You can serve notice quietly or loudly." Lorraine took her mug of black tea, carried it to the window, and watched the rain snake down the glass. "Let the silence do the heavy lifting." Victor chuckled low. "That's colder than I expected." "Not cold," she said. "Just overdue." They hung up without goodbye. Outside, the world was moving, unaware that something irreversible had just shifted in its soil. Lorraine set her mug down and began her next sequence. From the kitchen drawer, she pulled a small embossed card, the locksmith's business card she'd tucked away months ago. She dialed the number. "Keating & Sons, 24-hour service," the voice answered. "I'll need all locks changed on a single property," Lorraine said. Her tone was calm, almost polite. "Today, if possible." "Is this an emergency situation?" "Yes," she said. "You could say that." When she gave the address, there was a brief pause. The man whistled softly. "That's a big one." "It used to be," Lorraine replied. "Now it's just overdue maintenance." They scheduled for noon. After hanging up, she leaned against the counter and looked again at the manila envelope. The rain outside had slowed to a mist, but the quiet felt electric, like the pause between lightning and thunder. The plan wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Her silence would echo louder than any courtroom drama Greg could imagine. Her phone buzzed again, this time a notification. Margot Ashcroft commented on her own post. "Some people just don't know how to stay gone." Lorraine screenshotted it, printed it, slipped it under the original. The printer clicked and whirred like applause. She spoke softly to herself, barely a whisper. "Keep talking, Margot. Every word's a nail." By noon, the locksmith's van was parked discreetly near the gates. Lorraine watched from her car as he carried his tool bag toward the door. Greg wouldn't be home until evening. Chelsea had Pilates. Margot, brunch. Timing, perfect. She texted Victor one word. "Proceed." His reply came instantly. "Delivery en route. Certified courier, 3 p.m." And just like that, the fuse she'd built years ago began to spark. Lorraine sat back in her seat, rain still whispering across the windshield, the house's silhouette growing softer through the mist. Her reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar, not vengeful, not even angry. She looked calm, hollowed out, finished. Then her phone pinged again, one more alert. But this one wasn't from Margot or Victor. It was from the security feed she'd reactivated in the garden the night before. Motion detected. 12:47 p.m. Lorraine stared at the notification, her breath catching. The garden had been empty when she left. Slowly, she turned her head toward the distant hedges beyond the drive. The mist thickened, coiling low over the ground like smoke. Something moved. The hostess smiled like she was trying to pass a kidney stone. Ashcroft, party of 6? Margot swept in with her oversized sunglasses perched atop her platinum bob and a Chanel scarf slung over one shoulder like a victory banner. Yes, dear, private patio. We confirmed last week. Behind her, Chelsea clutched her faux croc handbag like it was handcuffed to her wrist. Greg trailed close, eyes fixed on something invisible 3 feet ahead of him. Lorraine brought up the rear, silent and smiling with her lips, not her teeth. She didn't speak when the hostess led them past couples drinking mimosas and kids playing with syrup-sticky crayons. Didn't explain why she was there either. She wasn't asked. The table was tucked into a walled corner of the patio, just under the shade of an ivy-draped pergola. It was beautiful in a curated, overpriced kind of way. Perfect for people who measured life in social media captions and seasonal menus. As they sat, Lorraine laid her black leather handbag down beside her chair, the corner of a manila folder just peeking out from underneath it. The air was warm, but her coat stayed on. The silence was immediate and barbed. Margot broke it first. Spa retreats in Arizona are heaven this time of year, she announced, draping her cloth napkin into her lap like it was part of a stage costume. They do this exfoliation with Himalayan salt and warm silk mitts. Honestly, I felt 10 years younger, and I look it, don't I? No one answered fast enough. Chelsea forced a tight laugh. You always bounce back, Mom. Greg pretended to read the menu. Though the place only had 3 brunch options, and he'd been there twice that week. Lorraine stirred her coffee. Margot turned toward her, not directly, but with that practiced oblique angle that still made her the focus. You know, Lorraine, you'd love the retreat I went to. It's all about high-value aging. Very empowering. They help you learn to let go. Lorraine took a sip of her coffee. I think I'm doing just fine on my own. Oh, sure, Margot waved a hand, her bracelets clinking. I just meant, well, being gracious about our past is so essential. Holding on only drags us down. Chelsea nodded solemnly, as if she knew something about being dragged down. I've been saying we need to simplify. These mortgage payments are insane. Lorraine tilted her head. What payments? Greg dropped his fork. Chelsea blinked. The house, obviously. The utilities, landscaping. You know how it adds up. Lorraine said nothing, but her hand slid down slowly, almost imperceptibly, and brushed the manila folder under her bag. It remained sealed. For now. Greg still hadn't looked at her. His shoulders were drawn tight. His smile, if it could be called that, was clenched between his molars. Lorraine wondered if he even remembered how many cameras she'd had installed before the sale. If he knew what had been caught on the garden feed. Her phone buzzed. Anna, get out of there. You're worth more than this. Lorraine didn't reply. She glanced up just as the waitress approached. Any food for the table? I'll just have coffee, Lorraine said. You sure? The waitress asked, nervous around the jagged energy of the table. The brioche is, I'm sure. Greg mumbled something about the frittata. Chelsea ordered a mimosa. Margot demanded lemon slices and a hot water in her own mug. As the plates arrived, conversation dripped like a leaky faucet. Slow, uneven, vaguely acidic. Lorraine said little. She just watched, listened, documented. Margot launched into a story about her personal stylist and the wardrobe they were curating for spring. Chelsea laughed too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. Greg kept adjusting his watch like it might whisper a way out. And Lorraine, still calm, still quiet, finished her coffee. She reached into her bag and pressed her fingers to the folder for a beat too long. Margot was mid-sentence when Lorraine finally stood. I have to go. Everyone looked up, startled, as if they'd forgotten she was there. Chelsea blinked. Oh, so soon? Afraid so. She wrapped her coat tighter around herself, though it wasn't cold. Some of us still own our time. She turned and walked out without waiting for a response. The sun broke briefly through the clouds, casting fractured light across the patio tiles. Lorraine didn't look back. Out front, she stopped by the valet stand and waited as her car was brought around. Her phone buzzed again, this time not Anna. It was a motion alert from the garden. Again, motion detected, 1:14 p.m. She opened the app. The screen flickered. For a moment, the image was just mist and branches swaying. Then something sharp moved at the edge of the frame, fast. Animal, human, impossible to say. The footage glitched. She stared at it, the phone warm in her hand. This wasn't just about deeds anymore. Something had awakened. Something that didn't want to stay buried. The morning broke clean and sharp, the kind of spring day that pretends it's harmless. A light breeze carried the smell of cut grass through the Ashcroft estate's open windows. Inside, the house gleamed. Immaculate, curated, fake. Chelsea had arranged the dining room herself, of course. A spread of pastel cupcakes, champagne flutes already half filled. The kind of picture-perfect brunch scene designed for posting before noon. Balloons drifted near the ceiling like fragile little lies. It was her 34th birthday. At exactly 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Chelsea turned from the mirror where she was adjusting her hair. "Greg, can you get that?" He was scrolling through his phone, still in a robe, eyes bleary. "Who's coming this early?" she frowned, exasperated. "Probably the bakery delivery. Don't let them smudge the frosting this time." But when Greg opened the door, it wasn't the bakery. It was a man in a navy jacket with a messenger bag and a clipboard. "Delivery for Mr. and Mrs. Ashcroft." Greg blinked. "Yeah, that's us." "Signature, please." Greg signed, still half distracted. The courier handed him a thick, cream-colored envelope, sealed with a gold tab. Official. Weighted. "Who's it from?" Chelsea called out. The courier gave a practiced smile. "Lorraine Hale?" The sound of her name hit the air like a dropped glass. Chelsea's hand froze mid-adjustment, her reflection staring back from the mirror with sudden stillness. Greg turned the envelope over. His fingers twitched. This has to be a mistake. But when he tore it open, the first line ripped through the quiet. "Notice to vacate. 30 days. Revocation of use enforced per clause 4B. The words blurred for a moment before snapping into painful focus. Chelsea crossed the room and yanked the paper from his hands. Her eyes skimmed the page once, then again. This is insane. This has to be illegal." Greg's face drained of color. "She can't, can she?" "She won't," Chelsea snapped, pacing. "She's bluffing. This is just to humiliate us." He didn't answer. He was already dialing. Across town, in her quiet kitchen, Lorraine sat by the window with her tea. The same black blend she'd had every morning since the sale. The phone buzzed once. Greg Ashcroft. She watched the screen light up. The name glowed bright, desperate. She let it ring. The call went to voicemail. Seconds later, the phone rang again. Chelsea this time. Lorraine didn't move. She simply let the screen dim back to black. When it stopped, she waited. Knew what would come next. A chime. The voicemail. Chelsea's voice was sharp, breaking between fury and fear. "Lorraine, you can't do this. You gave us that house. You signed it over. This is harassment. You'll regret this. Do you hear me? You can't." Lorraine ended playback halfway through. She didn't need to hear the rest. She forwarded both messages, Greg's missed call and Chelsea's voicemail, to Victor. No caption, just attachments. Victor's reply came 5 minutes later. All clean, procedure airtight. Revocation stands. Lorraine smiled faintly and tapped the screen off. The house had fallen quiet except for the low hum of her printer. From its tray, another document slid out, the formal confirmation of receipt. Notarized, time-stamped 10:04 a.m. She slipped it into her folder and closed it. Her movements precise, unhurried. She didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. Her phone buzzed again, Charlene this time. "Morning, Warrior Queen," Charlene said, voice warm but edged. "I saw Victor's email. You did it." Lorraine glanced out the window, the reflection of the garden visible in the glass. I did what I promised myself. Let me guess, Charlene said dryly. He's already called. And left a message. Of course he did. A pause. You gave them a house, Lorraine. They gave you shame. This is the math finally balancing. Lorraine's gaze shifted toward the horizon, where the mist was beginning to lift from the hedges. Balance, she said softly. That's one word for it. Charlene hesitated. You sound different. I am, Lorraine said simply. A long silence. Then, what's next? Lorraine's eyes lingered on the motion alert icon, still visible in her notifications. The one from the garden. The one that hadn't resolved. Her voice lowered, thoughtful. Next, I make sure they understand this isn't about property. Charlene exhaled. Then what is it about? Lorraine looked at her reflection in the dark window pane. Accountability, she ended the call. Outside, the wind stirred. Leaves whispered against the glass, faint and dry. Somewhere, far off, a door slammed. The sound carried strangely, hollow through the air. Back at the estate, Greg stood in the foyer, still clutching the notice. Chelsea had disappeared upstairs, the sound of her pacing echoing off the marble floor. On the table beside the cupcakes, the gold-trimmed envelope lay open, the words inside heavy enough to tilt the room. Margot would be there soon. She'd have opinions, theatrics, outrage. Greg knew that. But right now, he just stared at the paper, unable to look away. Outside the front window, the garden swayed gently in the wind. For a split second, he thought he saw someone standing near the hedgerow, a figure, still, watching. When he blinked, it was gone. The knock came just before noon. Not frantic, not furious, just hopeful, which made it worse. Lorraine didn't move at first. She stayed behind the sheer linen curtain of her front window, one hand resting lightly against the frame, the other around a warm mug of black tea. Outside, Greg stood at her doorstep, shoulders hunched in the spring sunlight, a man who still believed he could explain his way out of consequence. He wasn't holding flowers, not a letter, just his phone, gripped tight in one hand, screen dark. From this distance, Lorraine could see the lines around his eyes more clearly than ever. The guilt hadn't aged him. It was the fear. Fear of being told no in a language he had never learned. He knocked again, 3 soft raps, then a longer pause. Anna stood behind Lorraine, arms folded. She hadn't said anything since he arrived. She didn't need to. He really thought showing up would fix it, Anna said finally, voice flat. He always thinks presence is enough. Lorraine didn't answer. She just sipped her tea, never taking her eyes off Greg. The doorbell rang. Anna raised an eyebrow. You want me to handle it? Lorraine shook her head. No. The phone in her pocket buzzed. She didn't have to look. She already knew the name on the screen. Victor. She pulled it out, put it on speaker. Tell me he's not at your door, Victor's voice snapped, calm but coiled. He's not in my house, Lorraine said. That's what matters. Victor exhaled. Do not engage. Do not open it. Everything goes through counsel now. I know. Even if he begs. Especially if he begs. Greg stepped back from the door and looked around, squinting against the light. She could tell he was trying to spot her through the windows. Lorraine shifted half a step back into the shadow. Victor continued, quieter. You've already won the legal ground. Do not give him a single crack to crawl through. Greg knocked one final time. It echoed, soft and hollow, through the hallway. Then, finally, he turned and walked down the steps, slower than he'd arrived. Anna moved to the window and watched him cross the sidewalk to his car. That was sad. He had every chance, Lorraine murmured. She wasn't angry, she wasn't triumphant. She was tired of watching men misunderstand what it meant to be forgiven. Or not. As Greg drove off, Lorraine stepped away from the window and dropped the curtain. The house sank back into its quiet, each silence earned. Hours passed. That evening, Lorraine sat at her kitchen table, the manila folder now an inch thicker than it had been the day before. She opened it and clicked her laptop awake. Notifications flooded the screen. Emails from Victor, another message from Charlene confirming the eviction clock had begun, and one new alert that made her pause. Instagram, @chelsea.ashcroft posted a new story. Lorraine clicked. Chelsea had posted a photo of herself sitting on a white leather couch, the angle just so to catch her tear-streaked cheek, her hand clutching a glass of rosé like a lifeline. Text over the image in cursive font. People who destroy families should rot, but I guess some people don't know what love even looks like. Lorraine stared at it. No names, but no need for them. The digital world had become their court of public performance. Chelsea had always known how to play victim before the applause was even cued. Lorraine took a screenshot. Then she created a new folder in her drive. Ashcroft Contempt Exhibit C. She uploaded the image with the same calm she'd used to sign the deed revocation. Labeled it. Archived it. She didn't respond. She didn't comment. She simply preserved it. Anna walked in with 2 glasses of water. Something new. Just more noise, Lorraine said. People shouting into mirrors, hoping someone thinks they're windows. Anna sat across from her. You're not even angry. I was, Lorraine said. Now I'm just clear. Outside, the wind kicked up. A gust rattled the garden gate, and Lorraine's phone buzzed again. Motion detected. Rear sensor. 9:17 p.m. She tapped into the camera feed. The screen loaded slowly. The mist was back, coiling low along the base of the hedges, and then something shifted. Near the far edge of the yard, a figure moved. It wasn't Greg, too still, too tall, no face, no features, just the unmistakable shape of someone watching. She leaned in. Anna looked over her shoulder. That's not a glitch. No, Lorraine whispered. It isn't. And for the first time in weeks, her hand trembled. Lorraine opened the email with a steady hand, though the subject line reeked of desperation. Frank possibility of renegotiation, request for cooperation. The message was long, wordy, polished like a confession dressed in cologne. Greg had signed it, though Chelsea's fingerprints were all over the language, half apology, half manipulation, full of hollow warmth and veiled threats. It circled around their situation, asked for consideration, requested collaboration. It ended with a single plea, please respond, we're willing to talk. Lorraine typed one word, no. Then she hit send. No subject line, no greeting, no context, just the answer they'd earned. By noon, Victor had filed the lien. From his law office in downtown Charleston, he moved with the speed of a man who'd once dismantled hedge funds for fun and now considered property disputes sport. Lorraine didn't even need to call. He updated her automatically. Greg Ashcroft is blocked from remortgaging or leveraging the property for cash. Attempted assumption of ownership. Denied. In less than 4 hours, Greg's credit dropped like a rock through a windshield. Lorraine saw it first in the alert that hit her inbox, thanks to the monitoring service Victor had activated last fall, just in case. Greg had tried to pivot, refinance through an out-of-state lender, desperate to salvage something, but the lien locked him out. No release, no workaround. No cooperation, not anymore. In Lorraine's study, the fire crackled low as she sat before her desk. A thin stack of legal documents spread out like tarot cards. Her updated will sat at the top. She flipped through the pages with careful fingers. The ink was still sharp. Victor had made the adjustments fast. He always did when things turned real. Clause 9b was new. Any person listed in Schedule C, who has at any time violated terms of moral good faith or conducted acts of personal betrayal toward the grantor shall forfeit all claims, financial or material, in perpetuity. This clause is non-contestable, irrevocable, and final. She turned to Schedule C. Greg Ashcroft. Removed Chelsea. Ashcroft, removed. She flipped forward. Anna Fields. Full beneficiary rights. Medical, financial, estate. No restrictions. Lorraine capped her pen and signed the last line. Victor had included a final confirmation form with a single blank for her words, a statement of intent. She wrote in print, "They get nothing, not even closure." Anna stepped into the room, pausing at the edge of the firelight. "You ready to send it in?" she asked softly. Lorraine nodded. "Everything's in the folder. Final copies go out tomorrow." Anna didn't speak for a moment. Then, "It's brutal, but it's honest." "Brutality is when people assume kindness is endless," Lorraine said. This is just the ending. They stood in silence as the wind picked up outside. The branches along the side of the house tapped lightly against the siding. Anna walked over and glanced at the will. Her eyes flicked across the names. She stopped when she saw her own. "I didn't expect this," she said. "You earned it," Lorraine replied. "Everyone else expected it." Anna looked over at her. "Is this closure?" "No." Lorraine leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowing toward the dark window. "This is structural damage. They don't get to walk away without feeling the cracks." Just then, her phone buzzed again. A notification. Chelsea Ashcroft posted a new story. Lorraine didn't even flinch. She tapped, watched. It was a black screen with one sentence in white block text. "God sees everything, even those who pretend to be righteous while ruining lives." A halo emoji, a dagger emoji, a red heart cracked down the middle. Lorraine stared at it. No anger, just information. She screenshotted it. Opened her drive. Ashcroft Contempt Exhibit D upload. Label Archive. "Still throwing rocks from inside glass," Anna said, peeking at the screen. Lorraine turned back to the window. The garden was barely visible now. Dusk had softened the sky, and mist had begun to gather again at the base of the hedges. "Let them post. Let them scream," Lorraine said quietly. "The soil always tells the truth." She stood and walked slowly to the window, the air around her feeling denser now, charged. Something shifted near the garden gate. She leaned closer, there, near the hedgerow. Movement again, not fast this time. Still. A shape in the shadows, watching, like last night. Anna came up beside her. "It's back." Lorraine didn't blink. It never left. Victor's email landed at 6:03 a.m. Subject line, "Official response to request for cooperation." Lorraine opened it without a second thought. No drama, just execution. Attached were 3 PDFs, one titled Notice of Revocation, another labeled Transfer of Fiduciary Rights, and the last a full exhibit index, every documented slight, false statement, and misrepresentation compiled and formatted in a letterhead so clean it practically gleamed. Victor didn't just respond, he gutted them. Each document was precise, surgical. The revocation clause alone was 3 pages long and referenced property law statutes with brutal clarity. It cited dates, behaviors, even screenshots. Exhibit D now embedded in a formal timeline of irreparable breach of fiduciary trust. Chelsea's bitter little Instagram story was now evidence in a legal response that made mockery look like malpractice. Greg's name appeared 26 times in the letter. Chelsea's? 29. Margot appeared only once, but it was the footnote that did the most damage. As an aside, the language used by Mrs. Warty are Margot Kingsley in reference to Ms. Lorraine Fielding, namely, vindictive hag who needs a long nap in a shallow grave, has been preserved in the appendix as Exhibit G. It may become relevant should defamation proceedings arise. At this time, we seek no action, only acknowledgement. Lorraine had read that line twice, then laughed once, sharp, not bitter, like something snapped back into place. By midday, the letter had circulated. Victor had copied in not only the Ashcrofts' legal representation, but also the HOA board, 3 mutual lenders, and the notary service Greg had once used to try and overwrite Lorraine's name from a shared deed without her consent. An hour later, Margot texted a vague apology to Anna. Something about being put in the middle and not knowing the whole story. Anna read it, said nothing, and swiped it into the trash. Lorraine didn't even acknowledge it, but the fallout began fast. The Ashcrofts' lawyer, a junior partner from a middling firm in Raleigh, formally withdrew within the day. The official statement cited irreconcilable conflict of interest and client failure to disclose material facts. Translation: they'd been lied to, or maybe just bored of defending spoiled frauds with no leverage. Then came the ripple through the neighborhood. Mrs. Chen from 2 doors down left a tin of lemon cookies on Lorraine's front porch with a card that read, "Your strength is quiet, but never mistaken." A week ago, she'd barely made eye contact in the mailbox cluster. Today, her note felt like testimony. The HOA president emailed Lorraine privately, "Thank you for protecting the integrity of the community. Some of us were rooting for you the whole time. We just couldn't say it." Lorraine didn't reply. She forwarded it to Victor. He sent back a one-line response. They're scared now. That's respect. In disguise. By dusk, Anna had pulled 5 boxes from the attic and started sorting books by author. Lorraine stood in the center of her study, watching the life she'd built dismantle itself in layers. Efficient, orderly, chosen. A decade ago, that kind of change would have hollowed her out. Now it just felt clean. You sure about downtown? Anna asked, taping a box labeled memoirs and letters. Lorraine nodded once. I don't need the house, just the power back. Outside, the porch light kicked on as the wind curled around the eaves. Anna stacked another box near the door, where the folder of legal documents still sat waiting for courier pickup in the morning. Lorraine moved toward the fireplace and pulled the last framed photo from the mantel, her and Greg at their 5th anniversary dinner. She studied it for a long second. Then she turned the frame over, opened the back, and slid the photo out. Only the picture, no glass, no frame. She walked it to the fireplace and fed it into the flames. It curled, smoked, and folded into itself like a paper wing giving up mid-flight. Just as the ash turned white, the doorbell rang. Anna looked up. Expecting someone? Lorraine froze, shook her head once. She moved to the door, slow, certain, and opened it. Standing on the porch was a woman, late 30s, trim black suit, a leather portfolio under one arm. Her mouth was set, but her eyes carried something between urgency and apology. She extended a card. Ms. Fielding, I'm with the county records office. There's been a motion filed this morning you may want to see. Your name's attached to it, not by you. Lorraine took the card without blinking. Behind her, Anna stepped forward. Filed by who? The woman's gaze flicked between them. Greg Ashcroft. Lorraine didn't speak. The flames in the fireplace flared once behind her, and outside, the mist thickened again near the garden gate. She turned slightly toward the study. The legal documents were already sealed. But the war wasn't. Not yet. Lorraine didn't answer right away. She sat down at the kitchen table with the motion packet unopened beside her, and her phone dimmed on the counter. The rain had started again, soft this time, like a whisper on the shingles, and the garden outside was half swallowed by the fog. The house felt like it had already let her go, and maybe it had. She finally opened the email. Filed. Petition for review of transfer. Claim of marital entitlement. Greg's name sat at the top. Chelsea's not listed, but Lorraine could hear her voice in every paragraph. The wording was thinner now, legalese wrapped around old wounds they were hoping to rip open one last time. The motion challenged the original revocation of Greg's claim, citing emotional duress and non-consensual disinheritance. No new evidence, no original documents. Just desperation with a heading. At the bottom, Greg had written a line, a single sentence outside the legal formatting. I know you're angry, but this doesn't have to end cruelly. Lorraine stared at it for a long time. Then she forwarded the entire message to Victor. No comment, no subject, no drama. She didn't reply to Greg. She didn't reply to anyone. Instead, she picked up the old brass landline in the hallway and dialed Charlene's number. It rang twice before the voice on the other end answered with the same energy she always had. Half sarcasm, half survival instinct. Tell me you're not calling to cry forgiveness. Lorraine exhaled, something almost like a laugh. No, just making sure the moral compass still spins in the right direction. Charlene paused. Then, they think guilt is the only currency that still spends. Lorraine's voice was low, steady. They overdrew that account years ago. A silence passed. Thick but mutual. I'm listing the house, Lorraine said. Today. Charlene whistled low. Hell of a sunrise announcement. It's time. And it was. By noon, her realtor had shown up in navy suede boots and a blazer too sharp for a Tuesday, ready to stage and shoot and get it moving. The paperwork took an hour, the conversation less. Lorraine's name was the only one on the deed now, clear, absolute. The revocation had done more than hold ground. It erased the shadows. This'll move fast, the realtor said, glancing at the wraparound porch. This neighborhood doesn't see many clean listings. Lorraine nodded. Clean is the only thing I've got left to give it. The photographer took shots of the garden, the staircase, the wood trim she and her father had refinished after the flood 10 years ago. Lorraine didn't flinch. She just boxed up a few final things in the study, mostly her father's letters, a few journals, and the mint green fountain pen that somehow still wrote after 25 years. By the second afternoon, 2 offers came in. One was 25 grand over asking, contingent on a 45-day close, financing dependent on an upcoming bonus. The other was 5 under, all cash, close in 7. Lorraine didn't blink. Take the second, she told the realtor. I want it done. The woman looked surprised. That's a pretty quick turnaround. That's the point. She signed the acceptance that afternoon in the study, the smell of the gardenias from the front bed floating in through the open window. Anna passed her a cold glass of sweet tea. Her sleeves rolled, dust smudged on her cheek from the attic. You okay? Anna asked. Lorraine nodded, but slowly. It's strange. You spend years trying to hold something in place, thinking it's the foundation. Then you let it go and realize it was just dead weight. Anna sat on the edge of the desk. Not everything heavy is solid. A long pause passed between them. Then Lorraine pushed back her chair and stood. Her legs ached, not from age, but from something deeper. From the drag of carrying names that no longer belonged to her story. Just then, her phone buzzed. Another alert. Chelsea Ashcroft has tagged you in a post. Anna reached for the phone, but Lorraine was already moving toward it. The post was public. A photo of the garden, her garden, taken through the side hedge. The caption was a single sentence. Some people would rather burn history than admit what they did to deserve the ending. The comments had already started. Supportive, cryptic, 1 or 2 venomous. Lorraine didn't react, didn't flinch. She turned the phone over and placed it face down on the table. Then she looked up toward the staircase, toward the last 2 rooms waiting to be packed, toward the garden that had just become a battleground. They think the house was the story, she said. Anna looked at her. Wasn't it? Lorraine's eyes narrowed, sharp now, cold. No, she said. I was. She walked toward the front door, grabbed her keys, and paused. I need to show them what they're not invited to anymore. Anna tilted her head. Where are we going? Lorraine opened the door. County Records Office, she said. Time to close their loophole before they find another. And outside, through the mist, someone was watching from the end of the street. Again, Lorraine didn't go back for move-out day. She didn't need to. The keys had already been handed off, the sale finalized. Her name etched in county records with Victor's neat digital signature sealing the last line. The legal world had shifted. The emotional one was still catching up. Instead, she sat on Charlene's front porch 2 blocks away, wrapped in a soft gray cardigan, the morning light crawling slow over the cracked pavement. Charlene's coffee pot hissed inside. The air carried the faintest trace of ocean salt, and the hum of moving trucks was audible in the distance, a low metallic groan that came and went like an old regret. Want me to drive you over? Charlene asked, stepping out with 2 steaming mugs. Lorraine shook her head. I paid someone to witness it, so I don't have to. Charlene passed her a mug. That's colder than I expected from you. It's not cold, Lorraine said, watching a robin hop along the curb, head tilted as if listening. It's distance. They keep confusing the two. Across town, the representative she'd hired, a tidy man in a navy suit named Mark Ainsley, was standing in the doorway of the Charleston house, clipboard in hand. His demeanor was polite but perfunctory, every word clipped, every movement recorded for verification. Greg and Chelsea were already there when he arrived. They hadn't been invited, but they came anyway. Greg in a windbreaker that still smelled faintly of whiskey, Chelsea in oversized sunglasses, the kind that tried to turn shame into style. You're trespassing, Mark had told them calmly, scanning the paperwork. The deed no longer lists your names, Greg scoffed. We're here to make sure she didn't screw up the transition. This house still has your memories, Mark interrupted, not your ownership. Chelsea crossed her arms, nails sharp enough to catch sunlight. You don't have to be smug about it. Mark didn't reply. He just gestured to the open front door. The new owner requested a final inspection. You can either observe from the sidewalk or leave. That's when the arguing started. It wasn't loud at first, just brittle. The kind of tone that cracked like glass but didn't quite shatter. Then Greg said something about how Chelsea had pushed too hard, and she shot back about how he'd been too weak to stop Lorraine's lawyer from making them look like fools. Neighbors began to gather. Mrs. Chen stood behind her porch railing, lips pursed, a coffee mug held just below her chin. The HOA president watched from his car under the pretense of reading a clipboard. Even the mail carrier paused halfway up the street, pretending to adjust his satchel while not so subtly listening in. Greg's voice rose. "You dragged us into this. You and your damn pride." Chelsea jabbed a finger at his chest. "My pride? You're the one who couldn't even hold on to a house your ex practically gifted you." The slam of the moving truck door cut through the air like a gunshot. Lorraine heard none of it directly, only the faint echo that carried down the block. The wind brought fragments of sound, enough to paint the picture she didn't need to see. She took a slow sip of coffee. "It's happening," she murmured. Charlene raised an eyebrow. "You can hear it." "I don't need to," Lorraine said. "People like that make noise when silence stops working." Charlene smiled. "So what's next?" "Next?" Lorraine glanced down at her phone. "Paperwork. Always paperwork." Her screen buzzed. A text from Anna. "Anna, they're gone. The house is empty." Attached was a photo, wide shot, the living room bare except for the sunlight spilling across the floorboards. The air looked weightless, almost kind. No furniture, no echoes, just space. Lorraine stared at it for a long time. The spot where her father's armchair used to be. The wall where Greg's framed degree had hung. The corner where she'd once kept her grandmother's cedar chest. All of it empty, all of it lighter. She typed her reply slowly. And just like that, their stage is gone. Charlene leaned over to peek at the photo. "Clean slate." Lorraine shook her head. "No, clean conscience." Across town, Mark locked the front door and handed the new keys to a young woman with auburn hair and a steady smile, the new owner. She thanked him, then took one last glance at the yard before driving away. When the truck pulled off, the house stood quiet again. No voices, no performance. Back on Charlene's porch, Lorraine set her empty mug down and exhaled. Her shoulders dropped like she'd finally set something invisible on the table between them. "You okay?" Charlene asked softly. Lorraine gave a small nod. "I thought I'd feel loss, but it's something else." "What's that?" She turned her gaze toward the horizon, where the sky was just beginning to bruise purple over the marshes. "Freedom," she said. Then quieter. "And maybe the beginning of what comes after revenge." Her phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from Victor. Subject: Update on county filing. You'll want to see this. Lorraine's fingers hovered over the screen. The light from the phone flickered across her face, reflected in her coffee spoon like a second sunrise. Charlene watched her expression shift, composure thinning into something sharper, more alert. "Good news?" she asked. Lorraine didn't answer right away. She just looked up, eyes focused on something past the edge of the street. "No," she said finally, her tone calm but precise. "It's movement." And somewhere beyond the porch, in the pale quiet of evening, a car door clicked shut. Lorraine never opened the file. Victor's email still sat unread in her inbox 3 days later. Subject line bold, message marked important. She didn't need to read it. She already knew what it said. Instead, she sat at the small round table in her new apartment downtown. The window opened just enough to let in the autumn air. The city noise was a background hum now, distant construction, a siren slicing the air 5 blocks over, the low whoosh of traffic rising from below. It was a sound she hadn't heard in years. It sounded like life not stuck in someone else's version of a story. Anna was unpacking books in the living room, stacking them spine out on narrow white shelves. Lorraine watched her for a moment, her calm method, the way she paused to read the title of each one before placing it. Like the act of moving forward deserved reverence. Her phone buzzed again. Victor, this time without ceremony. Invoice attached. Ashcroft unpaid tax balance. Property years 2019 to 2022. Filed plus certified. Garnishment in motion. The total was underlined in red. $14,027 Every cent Lorraine had paid on that house when Greg forgot or needed more time. The record showed no thanks, just history. Now it would show debt. Victor's follow-up came 2 minutes later. They're no longer protected. We're past courtesy. Lorraine smiled, just slightly. Not out of satisfaction, just confirmation. She walked to her desk and opened the small black folder Victor had couriered the day before. The trust modification papers were printed on cream stock, thick enough to feel like permanence. Her assets were simple now. The downtown apartment, paid in full. A few residual investments Victor kept on cruise control. The life insurance payout from her mother's death. The royalties from her old grant writing templates, still used by nonprofits in 3 states. All of it, rerouted. Anna's name was typed clean across the first line. Full successor trustee and beneficiary. No restrictions, no contingencies. Below that, 4 charities. Local, not national. Each one tied to work. Lorraine had done quietly behind the scenes over the years. Domestic violence housing, grant access for public schools, emergency legal services for seniors. She signed each page in black ink, steady hand, no hesitation. When she reached the final line, Disinheritance Declaration, Clause 7C, she paused only to read it once, out loud. No person who sought to benefit from harm done to the grantor by manipulation, emotional coercion, or fraud shall receive benefit from the trust. This is final. Charlene had helped her edit that one. She showed up that afternoon with her usual flair, a denim jacket, gold hoops, and a look like she knew something the world hadn't figured out yet. Lorraine handed her the signed folder and a cold can of ginger ale. Sealed it, she said. Charlene skimmed the top page, then tapped a fingernail on the clause. They won't even have your shadow. Lorraine leaned against the counter. That's the part they always tried to keep. The version of me that still felt responsible. They loved playing victim to your grace, Charlene said. That version died the minute you stopped answering their calls. Anna stepped into the kitchen with a piece of mail in hand. Guess where they landed? She dropped a photo on the table, printed from an online rental listing. A 2-bedroom duplex on the edge of town, vinyl siding stained by rain, a chain-link fence that leaned like it gave up years ago. Greg's truck was parked in the driveway. Chelsea's vanity plate still visible behind it. Rental, Anna said. Month to month. Lorraine looked at it, blinked once. That's where they land when they run out of rope. No one said anything for a long moment. The city moved around them, subtle, detached. For the first time in a long while, Lorraine felt no tether, no guilt, no tension in her shoulders begging for space, just air. Anna tucked the photo back into the envelope and reached for the folder. Want me to drop this with Victor? Lorraine nodded. Tomorrow morning. Anything else you want to include? She thought for a second. Then, only the date. Anna reached for a pen. Today's? No, Lorraine said, her voice cool. The day I stopped owing them anything, 3 years ago, when they called it a misunderstanding instead of betrayal. She turned toward the window, the sky now pale and open above the city skyline. Somewhere far from here, Greg would be checking his account. Chelsea would be refreshing her inbox, looking for legal mercy dressed as paperwork delay. There would be no reply. Lorraine didn't owe them words anymore, only distance. Her phone buzzed again. Not Victor. Unknown number, no caller ID, just one word in the preview line. Please? Lorraine stared at it. Let it vibrate once, twice. Then she set the phone down, face down, and walked away. From the living room, Anna called out, You want music on? Lorraine's voice floated back calmly. Not today. Outside, the city lights were flickering on. Inside, the silence finally belonged to her. The walls of the condo were white. Not hospital white, but the kind of clean that let the light in and gave it room to stretch. Lorraine had left most of her furniture behind, intentionally. The only thing she brought was a single leather armchair, a coffee table with curved iron legs, and a set of botanical prints she'd collected from craft fairs over the years. Flowers, mostly, quiet ones, not bold or tropical. The kind that bloomed low and steady, lilac, clover, dusty miller. Anna came by every weekend to help hang them. She measured carefully, marked with blue painter's tape, stepped back with a squint like she was judging art for a gallery. Lorraine watched her, sipping ginger tea in socked feet and soft gray pants that didn't pretend to be anything but comfortable. You like it here? Anna asked one Saturday. standing on the couch with a level in one hand and a pushpin in the other. Lorraine looked around. The afternoon light warmed the hardwood. The fridge hummed softly behind them. A slow breeze pushed through the screen door, carrying nothing but air. "Everything here is mine," Lorraine said. "That's all I need." Anna smiled. "Your name's on every drawer, every key. No ghosts on the lease," Lorraine said, almost to herself. No shadows asking for second chances. By the following week, the last of the legal filings were finalized. Victor's final message came through late Tuesday, just as Lorraine was rinsing dishes from a lunch she'd eaten in absolute perfect silence. Subject: Final status update. All accounts closed. All liens released. All property reassigned and legally defended. No outstanding claims remain. No appeals filed within statutory window. You are, in every legal sense of the term, done. Lorraine didn't respond. She didn't need to. She just closed her laptop, pressed her palm to the lid for one long second, and exhaled. A clean exit. But quiet doesn't always mean untouched. That Thursday, a text came in from Charlene while Lorraine was out walking near the Battery, the ocean tugging the wind around her like loose thread. It was a screenshot, a message forwarded from an old mutual friend, someone they'd both half forgotten about until now. "Hey, Charlene, I don't mean to get in the middle, but Greg's been asking around. Says he can't reach Lorraine. Wanted me to pass along that he's sorry and hopes she'll talk. You think she'd be open to it?" Charlene had added a comment under it. "He's digging through people who don't even know how to spell closure." Lorraine stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered for a moment. Then she simply tapped read and dropped her phone into her pocket. Later that night, Charlene came by with takeout from the Thai place across the street and 2 bottles of white wine. They sat on the floor of Lorraine's new living room, legs stretched across the bare rug, dipping into curry and jasmine rice with plastic forks. "Your life's quieter now," Charlene said, nodding at the neatness of the space. "Feels good in here. Real? Balanced." Lorraine nodded. No one left to perform for. Charlene sipped her wine, then leaned back on her hands. The house sold. The story closed. The silence paid for itself. They ate in calm quiet for a while, watching the last bit of sunlight fade across the rooftops outside. Then Lorraine stood, wiped her hands on a napkin, and walked to the window. The city was calm that night. The streetlights blinked on one by one, casting long amber shadows that didn't quite touch her glass. Behind her, Charlene asked, "You regret any of it?" Lorraine didn't turn around. "No. Regret is something they taught me to carry for their benefit. I've put that down." Her phone buzzed once on the counter. She didn't reach for it. Charlene glanced at the screen. "Same number?" "Blocked," Lorraine said. "Just shows up anyway, like mold through old paint." A gust of wind brushed the balcony outside. Lorraine opened the sliding door just enough to hear it. "I used to wonder what I'd do if they ever really apologized," she said. "And now?" Charlene asked. Lorraine turned, eyes steady, voice even. "Now I hope they don't." She walked over to the counter, grabbed her mug of cold tea, and looked down at the phone. This time, no text, just a voicemail. The name read, "Unknown." The message was 0:42 seconds long. Lorraine didn't press play. She poured the tea down the sink, turned off the kitchen light, and walked out to the balcony instead. Behind her, the phone buzzed once more. A second voicemail appeared, this one shorter. 0:03 seconds. No transcript, no preview, just silence. Charlene stepped beside her, arms crossed. "They're still reaching for you in the dark," she said. Lorraine looked out at the city, where the horizon was dark and still, but the wind had picked up again. "Let them," she said. And below, somewhere on the street, a car idled too long at the corner. It started with a phone call Lorraine almost ignored. The voice on the other end was gentle but persistent. Elaine Donovan, freelance writer for a regional nonprofit coalition focused on elder protections and estate justice. She'd read about Lorraine in passing, buried in a footnote of a legal digest covering housing transition trends in Charleston. No names had been used, just a line. A former homeowner, forcibly removed from a co-owned property through covert manipulation, restored full rights through lien protection and trust restructuring. Elaine had tracked the story through public filings. She wasn't interested in gossip. She wanted truth, stripped of bitterness. A story about boundaries, what it cost to build them, and what it meant when you finally held the deed to your own life. Lorraine thought about saying no. Then she thought about Anna. She agreed, with one condition: no names. The interview took place over 2 afternoons at Lorraine's condo. No cameras, just notes and tea, and the occasional shared silence. When Elaine asked her what it felt like to lose the house, Lorraine answered without flinching. It wasn't a loss. It was a release. Respect doesn't arrive with a deed, but it can leave with one. When asked about the aftermath, the messages, the attempts, the voicemail she never played, Lorraine offered only this: they kept trying to turn apologies into contracts. I just stopped signing. The article, published a week later under the title "The Quiet Exit," how one woman reclaimed her name, her legacy, and left without leaving a door open. It ran online first. Quiet, no fanfare. But within 72 hours, it had been shared over 4,000 times. Retired attorneys reposted it. Caregivers sent it to clients. One elder law clinic in Asheville forwarded it in their monthly newsletter with a bold header: "Boundaries can be legal too." Anna saw it first in a campus Facebook group, then again in a group chat from her sociology seminar. On a quiet Tuesday evening, she opened her inbox to find a message from her college dean. Subject line: "Is this your grandmother?" Below was a screenshot of the article's pull quote, Lorraine's words in large type, floating above a blurred stock photo of a woman standing on a balcony at dusk. The dean had written only 2 lines. "If this is her, tell her the department is using this in our case study series on intergenerational justice." She rewrote something a lot of people were afraid to say out loud. Anna forwarded it to Lorraine, no commentary. Lorraine didn't reply. She just bookmarked it and closed the browser. But the ripple kept moving. Chelsea's Instagram disappeared the next day. Then her Facebook. Then the blog she used to update monthly with cryptic musings and passive-aggressive quotes about truth-tellers being persecuted. All gone. Every trace. No announcement, no rebrand, just deletion. Meanwhile, Victor sent another quiet update. No fanfare. Just a PDF attachment and one line in the body. Ashcroft bankruptcy petition filed and confirmed. Liens hold, garnishments remain in place. Lorraine opened the file, saw Greg's signature, small, uncertain. The list of debts long, heavy with taxes, fees, and residual legal penalties. She didn't forward it to anyone. She simply saved it in a folder marked "After." That Saturday, Anna stopped by with a bag of apples from the market and 2 cinnamon scones. They ate them on the balcony, wrapped in light shawls, the city stretching wide beneath them. "Your words are making rounds," Anna said softly. Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "Regional nonprofits, academic seminars, student forums. They're quoting you, you know. You didn't just close a chapter, you published it." Lorraine sipped her tea, the rim of the cup warm against her fingers. "I didn't want an audience." "That's the thing," Anna said. "You didn't perform. You just lived it. That's why it hit." They sat in quiet for a while, the kind that didn't need explanation. Then Anna asked, "Do you think they've read it?" Lorraine shrugged. "Probably." Anna nodded, then hesitated. "Do you hope they did?" Lorraine's eyes narrowed slightly, distant. The sky was shifting orange, dusk reaching out again like it always did. "I hope it reminded them that I survived," she said. And that the story ended without their version in print. Her phone buzzed once on the table. Not a call, not a message, an alert. Public comment posted to the Quiet Exit article. Username, Coastal Watcher 19. Lorraine tapped it once. Read it. Some people know how to lie with flowers and silence. This isn't justice. It's just strategy. Charlene texted her 2 minutes later. "I assume you saw that comment. Want me to torch them in the replies?" Lorraine replied, "No need. The whole world's already scrolling past them." She put her phone down, finished her tea, and looked up at the fading sky. And somewhere in the city below, another window closed. The mail came late that day. 3 letters, a flyer for a cleaning service, and 1 envelope that didn't belong. It had no return address, just her name written in slanted blue ink she recognized, even after all these years. The handwriting was tentative, like someone trying to remember what sincerity looked like. Lorraine held it between her fingers, the paper soft from being handled too much. She didn't need to guess who sent it. There were only two people left who would still believe a letter could erase a legacy: Greg or Chelsea. She stood in her kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence, the city outside her window carrying on as if nothing still burned quietly under the surface. Anna's laughter floated from the living room. She was on a video call, showing her friend the framed flower prints they'd finished hanging the night before. Lorraine looked down at the envelope again. It was heavier than it should have been. Too many words trying to weigh themselves into forgiveness. She turned it once, twice, then held it above the trash bin. "Don't do it," she murmured to herself. "Not even curiosity gets a reward this time." The flap caught the light, one small shimmer, and then it was gone, falling in with the junk mail and a used tea bag. No ceremony, no closure, just gravity. Her phone buzzed on the counter moments later. Victor. He never called without reason. "Tell me you didn't open it," he said, voice calm but threaded with the kind of concern that came from long habit. "I didn't," she replied. "Good. You don't owe her your reaction." "Her," Lorraine repeated. So it was Chelsea. Victor hesitated. Return address traced back to a post office near Somerville. No forwarding requested. Probably meant to look harmless. It was. She exhaled, slow. That's why it wasn't. There was a pause, one of those lawyer silences that meant respect rather than distance. "I'll mark it received and destroyed," he said finally, "and I'll update the contact restrictions on your directive, per our last revision." "Add something else," Lorraine said, reaching for her pen. "No visits, no calls, no reinstatements. None, not even through intermediaries. Consider it done." When the call ended, she stood at her kitchen counter for a long time, hand resting on the edge of the marble. The apartment smelled faintly of lemon polish and the jasmine candle Anna had brought her last week. It was the kind of stillness that had weight to it, the kind that comes when you realize peace doesn't need witnesses. Charlene showed up half an hour later, unannounced as always, hair wind-blown from her walk and a paper bag in hand. "Brought sandwiches. You look like you've been thinking too much," she said, setting the bag down. "What's with the long face?" Lorraine motioned toward the trash. "She sent a card." Charlene raised an eyebrow. "And you opened it?" Lorraine shook her head. "No, I didn't need to." Charlene peered into the bin, saw the corner of the envelope, and smiled. "Good. You're finally free of their vocabulary." Lorraine tilted her head. "Their vocabulary? You know, those words that sound like apologies but always come with terms. The kind that make you carry half the blame just so they can feel lighter walking away." Lorraine smiled faintly. "Yeah, I deleted the dictionary." Anna appeared in the doorway, her phone still in hand. "What dictionary?" "The one that used to define forgiveness as optional leverage," Charlene said dryly, opening the sandwiches. Anna laughed softly, then glanced at the trash. She didn't ask who sent it, she already knew. "They never had your grace," Anna said quietly. "Just your credit." Lorraine met her gaze. That was the loan that broke them. They ate in comfortable silence. The sky outside turned slow shades of coral and smoke, the kind of sunset that made the city look softer than it deserved. Charlene leaned back against the counter. "You ever wonder if they'll stop trying?" Lorraine thought about it. The calls, the letters, the half-hearted reachings that all came dressed as peace offerings. "They'll stop," she said, "once they realize silence is louder than I ever was." The wind picked up outside. A low whistle through the cracks of the balcony door. Lorraine turned toward it, something in her chest uncoiling. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. No message, just a photo attachment. She opened it. A shot of the old house, nighttime, porch light still glowing. Underneath, "You forgot something." Lorraine's jaw tightened. She stared at it for a long moment, then pressed delete. Behind her, Charlene was saying something about dessert. But Lorraine didn't hear it. She looked out toward the dark horizon, her reflection faint in the glass. "Let them haunt what's already theirs," she whispered. And outside, the porch light in the photo flickered once, then went out. The lecture hall wasn't grand, just 50 chairs half filled with law students, nonprofit directors, and local advocates who'd seen her name mentioned in passing in a case study or forwarded article. No projector, No panel of experts. Just a single wooden podium, a printed program, and a woman who once had her entire life stolen in small, polite increments. The title on the flyer read, Deeds, Boundaries, and Quiet Power. A case for legal ownership of the self. Speaker, L. Fielding, Reti. Lorraine stood in front of the audience in a navy wrap dress, hair swept into a low twist. She didn't look like someone who had walked through fire. She looked like someone who had stopped hosting other people's flames. She spoke for 20 minutes, measured, clear, no dramatic pauses. She talked about property law, sure, but only in the way it intersected with emotional currency. How names get placed on things by habit. How silence becomes permission. How women are often taught to preserve harmony instead of equity. She spoke about her former house only once, never naming it, just describing the anatomy of betrayal stitched into floorboards and polite dinners. She never said Greg's name, or Chelsea's, or even Anna's. But they were all there, in every sentence, in every breath she took without asking permission. Then came the last line. She didn't read it from her notes. The deed said my name. Eventually, so did the consequences. A beat of silence followed. Not stunned silence. The kind that comes when everyone present has just been handed a mirror. Lorraine gave a small nod. Thank you, then stepped back. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was precise, earned. Anna met her at the edge of the stage, arms open. You didn't just walk out, she said. Voice thick. You rebuilt. Lorraine held her close, hand cradling the back of her head like she used to when Anna was little. And you held the ladder. The rest of the evening passed in gentle waves. A few handshakes, a couple of business cards, a student asking if she'd ever thought about writing a memoir. Lorraine smiled. She didn't say no. Back at the condo, the world resumed its steady rhythm. Lorraine's days were simple now, quiet mornings with lemon tea, errands without explanation, long walks where no one interrupted her thoughts. She'd even started sketching again, flowers, of course, always in bloom, always her own. Everything she touched was hers. Her name, her words, her silence. Victor confirmed the final filings were now archived in full. No gaps, no appeals, no loopholes. Your insulation is absolute, he wrote in his last note. You built it like a fortress. They can't even knock without a court order, and they'll never get one. Meanwhile, Greg and Chelsea had moved again. Anna found the listing, unintentional. A studio on the fringe of town, near a bus depot. The listing said cozy, but meant tight. They'd sold Chelsea's car. The vanity plate had been quietly reissued to someone else. No house, no assets, no leverage, no audience. Anna didn't forward the listing. She just mentioned it one night while folding laundry. Lorraine nodded once, then kept reading her book. Charlene called a few days later. Heard from an old neighbor, she said. Apparently at some anniversary dinner, Greg brought Chelsea to his son's celebration. First one he'd been invited to in 2 years. Lorraine leaned against the kitchen island. And? Charlene let the silence linger, then said, At my son's anniversary, his mother-in-law sneered, Why is this pathetic woman here? And my son laughed with her. He stopped laughing when he realized whose name was on the deed. Lorraine said nothing. She didn't need to. She just walked to her window, cracked it open, and breathed in the clean night air. No ghosts, no curtains drawn against shame, just space. The house was gone, but she was still standing. And now, finally, alone in the story that had always belonged to her.